from Real Holistic Doc and from Dr. Sergey Leah Shealy-Sorin and our family at Real Holistic Doc, but also at Shealy-Sorin Wellness. So today is another wonderful opportunity for question and answer, and that's my first priority, to answer any questions that people may have. I'm also going to be talking about something called adrenoscaler, which is a device which is right here next to me. And this is one of the discoveries by Dr. Shealy and myself, or one of the things that we made happen in this world. And I'd like to talk about what this is, how it works, and why we came across it, why we came across the concept, and what we created with this. So if we don't have any questions at this point, I'm going to start with an introduction. So back some time ago, within the last 7 years, Dr. Shealy and I became very curious after we discovered a certain area in Italy where there was people living longer and healthier than other areas nearby. Pardon, please. So longevity and literally healthier, longer living people. So what's the secret? So initially, the paper or the information that came out with that said that it had to do something with rosemary, which is a type of herb. But that didn't make any sense because that herb was basically also everywhere else around the area, so it had to be something else. And that is how Dr. Shealy and I started talking about something called scalar waves. And that's what we're talking about here, which is a very different concept. And the other thing that was interestingly noted is that there's something called adrenomedulin, which is a type of a stress related hormone. Adreno means on the kidney surface. There's other things that are there. Cortisol, that's not the same thing. And some people do refer to something called adrenochrome, by the way, which is completely not what we're talking about here, which is a completely different topic, and I'd rather not get into that. But the concept is this is a different measurement, adrenomedulin, which is not very well known, and most doctors have no idea what that is, as a matter of fact. But with Dr. Shealy's neurosurgical background and our mutual interest in the control center and all kinds of chemicals that are there, that caught our attention. So the idea and the concept was to design and put together a tool or a device, which is what we got here, final version for now, which combines the piezoelectric effects of crushed sapphire, which is at the front of this, which is literally a screen of crushed sapphire. That's not you wouldn't make jewelry out of it, but it has a better ratio of storing, magnifying, and inducing further electromagnetic or piezoelectric effect. So that's very important. But there's also scalar waves and frequencies that are basically coming from the control in the back. What is scalar and what does it do? So we can talk about the effects because it's hard to measure scalar. It's a different kind of a wave, and I'll talk about that if I have some time. But the effects is that it can measure stress, which can be measured under several factors and measurables. And it lowers adrenomedulin. Now, adrenomedulin is it adjusts for stress, and when you're young and healthy, levels are low. When you're sick and old, levels are high. So people who have higher longevity, healthier, happier, live longer, better quality. Otherwise, their levels are similar to those of younger people, 20-year-olds. So that's why this became an interest, and it does do this. It does lower the adrenomedulin. It was a pilot study, and it was wonderfully conducive on that. Anti-aging is another factor with demonstration of a free radical reduction. free radicals are literally breakdown of the cellular products, cellular membranes and otherwise, that then literally go around terrorizing the rest of the body and causing premature aging. And so what so with the reduction of free radicals by a significant amount, 40 to 80%, that is a big factor. And last but not least, inflammation. There's a reducing of the inflammatory factors, and inflammation is literally behind autoimmunity and the breakdown and failure to heal of the body. Literally, inflammation is the number one nemesis of health, especially with all the terrible lifestyle and environmental, but also, well, a lot of people are inflamed, leading to metabolic and other conditions, including heart attacks, strokes, um, and of course, relaxation. Another interesting thing of this device is that we found that it reduces stress, puts a person into a delta activity. Delta, or introduces a delta. Delta is 0 to 3 cycles per second, can help support deep sleep, relaxation, and that's why I use it by the bedside throughout the day. Interestingly, in the pilot study that we conducted, it took 20 minutes to reduce inflammation, to reduce inflammation. It took about 3 hours to demonstrate free radical reduction. And again, in a pilot study, more information is needed, of course. And 9 hours per week was enough to reduce the adrenomedulin levels in the pilot study. So, and that is a key indicator of cumulative stress. So, what we're talking about is an overall enhancer on the cellular level and otherwise. Interestingly enough, and we also talk about another device which is called PEMF, Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Device. And Dr. Shealy has introduced Schumann frequency 0.83 cycles per second into that. We recommend using that together, and we've done that for a while. And I just came across something very interesting recently, is that scalar waves, and I'll talk more about that, will work together on a healing aspect, potentially work together with a Schumann frequency. In other words, aligns and optimizes. And Schumann frequency is the heartbeat of the earth, literally. And there's been studies and research with that. So harnessing and the combination of the Schumann frequency with Dr. Shealy's PEMF device and together with a scalar can be a wonderful effect. Wonderful. Now, the scalar is also something that I recommend having in every place of where you are, especially for a long time. So we have one in our bedroom. I have one in my office. But you can also pick this and move them around. It's just a plug in, and so you don't have to buy necessarily 3 or 4 units. We do have a question. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. Absolutely. And what are natural treatments for thyroid nodules? Oof. Thyroid, one of my favorite topics, being functional medicine, holistic and regenerative. Thyroid is right in the center of that. One of the 5 major regulatory organs, systems, including otherwise hormones, thyroid, GI, gut, limbic system, which is literally the brain, the stress, or hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, and then of course balances with DHEA, and of course then there's immunity. And they're all interfaces interacting. Thyroid plays a key role in some of these factors, especially energy, metabolism, weight, but also has a timing belt for the entire system, literally. So when it's off, when it's low, the body can make something called nodules, especially if those nodules are not cancerous. And it is important to check that, because if there is any chance or risk of cancer or malignancy, again, I'm still a medical doctor, so if you're not sure, if you don't know, check it out. make sure there's no red flag. And I say this as an emergency room doc. There's an ultrasound. Some people do a biopsy. Again, if you need to, that's fairly invasive. So I always think twice about invasive things if it's necessary or if it's not necessary. And if there is a benefit to knowing or to having the information, then absolutely do that. Absolutely do that. And of course, with a qualified doc. Once you know that there's no malignancy involved in the equation, you're not worried about that. And it's just basically thyroid issue. Usually you'll find that the TSH, which is the number that most people look at, is going to be either high normal or elevated. And that tells us that there is a thyroid insufficiency. But TSH by itself, or even free T4, which is what most people get, means nothing. Absolutely nothing. Why? Because that's the free T4 is the storage form, whereas free T3 is the form that is required for work. It's the workhorse, active hormone. So what we check is free T3, free T4 antibodies, and literally get into it, as well as all the other metabolic factors, hormones, and just to see how this whole mix of things work together. And then the goal is to optimize, take that thyroid and put it in the upper quarter percentile. Now, we don't treat the numbers, we treat the person, and of course symptoms and the clinical presentation, overall metabolism, all plays a absolute role in all of this. So then that's where the treatment with either iodine and then other things like selenium and other things that are essential as a nutritional cofactors, food for thyroid. And then, of course, you've got NP thyroid or armor thyroid, which is a desiccated or free T3, free T4 combination of thyroid. And the dose depends on where you are. Now, I do need to excuse myself for just 1 second. I am still here in the clinic, and I'll be right back, so please don't go away. Wonderful. All right, so now we're back to questions, and the fire has been put out, so that is wonderful. One of the things about being a doctor is, you can never count on any given time, so stuff always comes up. But let's get back to the discussion of this Sapphire enhanced scalar device, unless, of course, there's any other questions. So let's talk about the best usage of this device. And how we do that is literally when I'm in the bedroom or when I'm sleeping, it's pointed at me or towards me. So in other words, just think about a wedge effect. So what I'm doing right now is I'm sending scalar waves right now into the whole universe through this broadcast. So I hope that that's going to clear all the bad stuff that might be happening in your environment or in your life. But again, just I say that as a humor, of course, but we don't know what the scalar waves can do all around. It's still an interesting, very interesting science that has much to be discovered, and it's very difficult to measure. The interesting thing about it is that the discovery, and I'll just look over some basic facts here. It goes back to 19th century regarding the scalar waves, which is what we're talking about. So Now, James Maxwell was the one who introduced the idea, and of course, Nikola Tesla was the one who demonstrated it. And then well, you may know what happened to with Nikola Tesla and his discoveries, which is basically, well, he was suppressed basically for those who don't know, and all of his groundbreaking work, including scalar energy, literally went under the ground. So this is very fascinating, and this is actually very exciting to be able to talk about this. In medical application, the some of the points that I'd like to make is scalar waves have been mentioned to break down molecular bonds of fungi, bacteria. In other words, help with inflammatory aspects. It sounds like may have a role potentially in infectious process, although I just wouldn't depend on that to treat an infection in itself, but not by any means. Can may support. But some of the other things are stress relief, mood, stamina. Again, free radicals. That's a big deal. That is the stuff that literally ages us early and well destroys the body. You take care of the trillions of cells, and on a subcellular cellular level, that's good things can happen. So, and we talked about how Schumann frequency and the scalar waves are potentially interacting as well. Again, this is according to several sources, but again, one disclaimer is, of course, I am a physician, I'm a holistic regenerative functional doc, and I'm not by training nuclear or quantum physicist, but it is a fascinating area, especially when you see when you see results with people. And it's wonderful because that's what it's all about. Now, the other thing is, let's talk about another major principle in holistic medicine, which is literally safety versus safety versus unsafety. In other words, and we would never talk about or introduce anything that is not safe. That really literally goes against the Hippocratic oath, and we still honor that. I honor that personally. The other question is, for what you're doing, for the energy, for the resources that you're investing, are you getting results? And so far, we've seen some good things, but I would love to get your perspective, your opinion, and your feedback on this, of course. So I do want to announce this is a unit, by the way, that is currently on sale, 10% off, and it's a scalar 10. Scalar 10 until Monday coming up on 10/2 of Monday 23, that is. And 11 p.m. is the cutoff. So to take another 10% off, which is almost another $100, may help. Is not a bad suggestion there if you want to take care of yourself or a loved one and see what you can do with this. The code is scalar 10, and of course, everything and anything that we can think of in terms of health, including basics, is always a good idea. Now, there's a question, I believe. Let me see if I can read this. Would you suggest, if you've been on 3 antibiotics for 2 years for a non-tuberculosis microbacterial infection, what would you suggest? So we're talking about non-healing, in other words, stuck in a healing crisis, so to speak. And that happens to a lot of people, a lot of people. What happens is you have to take a look at the holistic aspect of what's going on. What is the pattern that allows a person to go down that path? Because if the body was not in condition or was not in a situation where that's allowed, then again, actions, consequences, patterns, and then you recognize the pattern, and then you take that pattern and you see what the outcome is. And sometimes you reverse engineer. You look at the outcome and you figure out what the pattern is. But this involves working with metabolism, getting up, functional, comprehensive blood work, which is beyond anything that conventional people do, looking at it from a fresh set of eyes, including ratios, and a lot of the reference ranges are idiot boxes, literally. That's why it's if you follow the conventional science and you look okay, you've been cleared. In other words, no worries. You're okay, but you don't feel okay. Something is not right. This is where functional holistic medicine comes in, and if you have a good doc near you who is willing to go down to the root cause, which is true functional in a holistic pattern, acknowledging the spirit, soul, mind, body, yeah, absolutely. If not, feel free to get in touch with us. We see people through Skype, through all sorts of video, but also in person. And we work with across continents as well. Some of my clients are actually from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Latin America, and it's fascinating to see to talk to all these folks. So our number, the clinic, is 417-351-5221. And it's thank you for allowing me to introduce another wonderful topic, adreno scalar, talking about free radical reduction, stress reduction, anti-aging, and anti-inflammatory, with lots of health benefits potentially. And well, we'll see you next following Friday, 12:30, and we'll have another wonderful topic. Bring your questions. Look forward to seeing you. God bless, and have a great weekend.